You know Chrono Trigger, you know Final Fantasy VI and Super Mario RPG, but what about all those other Super Nintendo RPGs? These are the ones that don't typically make the top 10 list for the best, and hey, that's okay. I mean, they didn't make my top 10 list, which you can find in the title card right here, but I have a list of 10 to share with you in this video that are I don't know, the next in line, the forgotten ones, you decide. Soul Blazer. In Soul Blazer, the master sends you to take care of business where the evil spirit Death Toll has devastated the land. Death Toll has been imprisoning the souls of all living beings within monster lairs. The once thriving world is now empty, its people and creatures trapped in darkness. To restore balance, you have to battle Death Toll's monstrous legions, destroying their lairs and freeing their lost souls. These souls then reincarnate into various forms, often humans, but sometimes animals or even just talking plants. Upon return, they rebuild their towns and offer guidance, items, and aid to their savior. You're the savior. When the going gets tough, it's your job to help these people out, right? Kill some monsters, save a flower. Kill some monsters, save a goat. Kill some monsters, save an old man, and they'll bless you in return. It's encouraging to think that you're directly freeing these people, sort of like how in Mario, the people of the Mushroom Kingdom were turned into bricks, and when you smash those, well, sorry, Timmy, it's a little dark. You, the hero, wield a sword and possess the unique ability to communicate with all living things, like a medieval Snow White or something. Traveling across 6 distinct regions, you liberate the inhabitants of the lairs and gather 6 magical stones. Stones, that's a weird way to say that. Each a different color to unlock the path to Death Toll's domain. Along the way, you'll also seek out 3 sacred artifacts needed to summon the power of the Phoenix, the only force capable of banishing Death Toll once and for all. Keep slashing, keep working your way through these labyrinths, and have a genuinely good time doing it. The music might be, a little repetitive, but the gameplay loop is exciting and addictive. But maybe that's too much adventure for you. Maybe that's too much choice. I hear you. How about something a little simpler? How about Mystic Quest? Mystic Quest has all you need to take control and freedom right out of your hands. Want to explore a map? Too bad, sucker. You're traveling around Super Mario style now. Maybe it's hand-holding because we're dumb, or maybe it's just intended to be a little simpler since this was Final Fantasy USA in Japan and intended for newbies to the genre. It was, of course, released in the US first, but progress is gated by tasks such as dungeon completion, unlocking new routes and locations, including towns, dungeons, and battlefields. The game has a few action-adventure mechanics, allowing players to jump and use weapons outside of battle for exploration, like axes, chop trees, bombs, clear paths, and a grappling hook bridges gaps. This game was thinking ahead of save states, man. Unlike traditional save points, players in this game can save at any time, and that's lovely. The battle system eliminates random encounters, which is, certainly welcomed. Instead, monsters appear as stationary sprites in dungeons, allowing players to choose engagements. Do you want to fight it? No, maybe not. Do you want to rumble with that foe? No biggie. Roll on, you crazy diamonds. Combat is turn-based and fairly typical. Players select from attacking, casting spells, using items, or defending. Health is represented by a life bar or numerical values. Character stats improve through experience points, affecting abilities like vitality and magic. Typical stuff. Battlefields scattered across the world map provide rewards such as gold, experience, armor, or spells upon clearing 10 enemy encounters. And you don't have to worry about game overs in Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, and the game over screen offers the option to restart battles as much as you need to. Customization differs from other Final Fantasy titles. Armor equips automatically when acquired, replacing previous gear. Weapons include swords, axes, bombs, and claws, each serving both combat and exploration purposes. Magic is obtained from treasure chests or battlefield rewards rather than learned through experience, divided into white, black, and wizard categories. Gosh, that wizard spell. I call upon the power of white magic. I call upon the power of black magic. I call upon the power of wizard magic. Spells do not rely on magic points, but have limited uses that increase with level. Healing spells and items function uniformly, removing the need for tiered potions. It's not about that potion, high potion, X potion, whatever. The game's setting comprises 4 elemental regions: Foresta, Aquaria, Fireburg, and Windia, each tied to a crystal that governs its well-being. The once thriving Focus Tower is overtaken by monsters who steal the crystals, draining the land of its vitality. A prophecy foretells of a knight who will defeat the Vile Four. While the story follows Benjamin, likely that night, that's you. Tasked by a mysterious old man with reclaiming the crystals, you embark on a quest through the ravaged world, seeking to restore balance to the world. Maybe it's a little too restricted. Maybe this game's too simple for you. No worries. Now, this next game has is a more complicated story with enough time that you can really sink your teeth in. What about Lufia 2: Rise of the Sinistrals? Lufia 2: Rise of the Sinistrals is the sequel to Lufia and the Fortress of Doom, but it's actually the prequel to Lufia and the Fortress of Doom. The game explores the origins of the Sinistrals and their war against humanity. You play Maxim, an ancestor of the original protagonist, as he uncovers the mysteries behind the godlike Sinistral's power. The game was later re-released as Lufia: Curse of the Sinistrals for the DS. Blending traditional turn-based combat with innovative puzzle mechanics, Lufia 2 offered the sort of gameplay experience you'd expect from an RPG at the time. It did differ in some aspects, of course. While the overworld featured random encounters, dungeons introduced visible enemies that moved only when the player did, and that added a layer of strategy. Maxim's tools, such as bombs, a hook shot, and a bow, facilitated exploration and puzzle solving, elevating the game beyond standard dungeon crawls. Combat was enriched by special abilities tied to equipment and fueled by damage taken during battle. This system encouraged players to balance statistical upgrades with tactical advantages. Additionally, capsule monsters, AI-controlled allies with evolutionary capabilities, added depth to party management. For the ambitious, the Ancient Cave, a 99-floor roguelike dungeon, provided a formidable test of strategy and perseverance, with randomly generated floors and the coveted blue treasure chest. Treasure chest? Treasure chest. Whatever. Narratively, Lufia 2 thrived on its compelling cast, from Maxim's childhood friend Tia to the elven archer Artea and the eccentric knight Dakar. These characters' bonds brought emotional weight to their quest. The antagonistic Sinistrals, Deos, Gades, Amon, and Aram, I suppose that's how you pronounce those, pose existential threats, challenging humanity's resilience. With its intricate gameplay, heartfelt storytelling, and enduring charm, Lufia 2 is still loved by the RPG community. Maybe Lufia 2 is just a little too vanilla for you. Maybe you've heard of the accolades of this game and you're different. You want something different. You want something different. Maybe you want something a little weirder with some unique looking graphics. What about Paladin's Quest? Paladin's Quest is a, you know what, let's do this real quick.
Paladin.
Paladin. Making sure. Paladin's Quest. Paladin's Quest is a unique blend of utopian and dystopian science fantasy. The game's unconventional mechanics set it apart somewhat from other RPGs on the Super Nintendo. Spells cost health points instead of the traditional magic points, forcing players to approach combat and resource management a little differently. You want to cast a fireball? That's going to cost you a finger. The narrative follows Chesney, a Magic Academy student who accidentally unleashes a destructive force by activating the ancient machine Dalgren. Tasked with preventing the end of the world, Chesney is joined by Midia and a rotating cast of mercenaries. These mercenaries, while varied in abilities, come with limitations such as fixed gear and differing healing capacities, encouraging strategic party composition and gameplay. The magic system, you know, finger or fireball, choose, is central to Paladin's Quest. Characters attuned to elemental spirits, unlocking spells that grow stronger with use. Combining spirits yields additional spells, fostering experimentation. However, healing resources are limited. You've got healing bottles, which are not as abundant as, say, potions in Final Fantasy, and a single healing spell, which costs the caster their HP when used. Oh, you've got a boo-boo? Want mommy to kiss it and make it better? That'll cost a finger. Part of the strategy of the whole game is figuring out how to keep yourself healed in this world of just, I don't know, limited healing. While the game's first-person battle evokes Dragon Warrior, its focus on customization with the spell system and its dystopian aesthetic helps set it apart from some of the other Super Nintendo RPGs at the time. Paladin's Quest rewards players with a rich, atmospheric experience that diverges from traditional RPG norms. So using a finger to cast a spell is hardcore enough for you. You want something a little more difficult, something you want to cost more fingers. You're not satisfied. You want a deeper challenge. You want to spend eternity grinding experience in a hellscape. I got you. How about the Seventh Saga? The Seventh Saga is a grind fest. Published by Enix, the game is set in the world of Takandera. The game follows 7 apprentices trained by the legendary Lamil. I suppose that's how you pronounce that. That's how I've pronounced it. Each character, from human warriors to alien mages, embarks on a quest to gather 7 magical runes that grant immense power. It's kind of like Rat Race.
I'm winning.
The game introduced innovative spell mechanics like a radar system, which displayed nearby enemies, allowing players to avoid battles, albeit with difficulty given the unpredictable enemy movements. Basically, the radar just said, guess what, you're about to be in a battle. The battle system, rendered in Mode 7 graphics, offered a third-person perspective and incorporated unique features such as duels with rival apprentices for runes. These rivals were randomized in their betrayals and alliances, and that added an element of unpredictability to the game. However, with so much grind in the game and so many different ways to play the game, you can put so much time into the Seventh Saga. I still haven't finished this thing. It is huge. huge. However, the 7th Saga is infamous for its punishing difficulty, exacerbated by localization changes that increased enemy stats while reducing player growth. This imbalance often left players underpowered compared to their AI-controlled rivals, making progress an absolute heck of a journey. Despite this, the game's narrative twist, including time travel and betrayal, get players engaged, and for me, what brought me to this game was the sprite art. It is absolutely gorgeous. But unless you're prepared for an absolute grind fest, I would encourage you to maybe think about it. Think about it before you jump into 7th Saga. Okay, maybe 7th Saga is a bit too grindy. Maybe that kind of game is just too much, right? Maybe it's too incredibly long as an RPG. And it's also dark. It's just a dark game. Maybe you go with something that's slightly more light, a little lighter, a little easier, a little more open. How about Lagoon? Speaking of an incredible grind, I'm actually trying to grind to 5,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. If you like this kind of content and you think you'd like to see more, I'd encourage you to subscribe. It really helps me out. Give me a like, give me a share, whatever. Thank you for your time and watching. Let's continue. Lagoon is a classic example of ambition meets limitations. The game tries to blend fantasy storytelling, action gameplay, and RPG progression, and it does okay for the most part. Originally released for the Sharp X68000 and later adapted for the Super Nintendo, Lagoon tells the story of Nasir, the champion of light, who has to save the land of, well, Lakeland from a catastrophic water crisis. And thus, Lagoon, right? The game's main antagonist has polluted Lakeland's rivers and lakes with dark magic, spreading sickness and despair among the people. What's his goal? To resurrect an ancient evil spirit and unleash it upon the world. I'm kidding. Like, it's, you know, there's, how many stories can you tell? To prevent this, Nasir journeys across towns, caves, and dungeons, encountering allies and taking on monstrous foes. From lowly insects to towering bosses, every encounter tests your skills, and likely, well, your patience. The gameplay is where Lagoon makes its money, albeit, you know, for better or for worse. Combat takes place in real time, much like the Ys games, but with a key twist. Nasir's sword is astonishingly short. This makes landing hits on enemies feel like threading a needle, adding a layer of challenge that many players either love or absolutely loathe. Despite this, the RPG elements like leveling up and acquiring new weapons and finding items along the way help keep the gameplay loop engaging for those willing to stick with it. It's just a little prick in the side, a little irritation there. Lakeland itself feels alive. It's got a lot of NPCs to talk to, and it's got secrets to uncover. And while the visuals may not be groundbreaking by Super Nintendo standards, the game's soundtrack is incredible. The music sets the tone for the adventure, from the haunting melodies of the overworld to the intense tracks during boss battles. If you're really interested in this game, the Sharp version actually has a little more story to it through some of the animated cutscenes, so I'd recommend checking that one out. I haven't myself, but now I want to. Lagoon may not be the most polished gem in the Super Nintendo library, but its ambitious storytelling, challenging gameplay, and unforgettable music make it a title worth checking out. Hey, and it's typically pretty cheap too. Whether you come for the fancy narrative or just to test your patience against that little short sword, Lagoon is an RPG adventure you won't soon forget for, whatever reason. Maybe you want an RPG that has a little more length to the sword, right? Something that adds a little more, I don't know, I want to stop making that joke. Maybe you want something with a little more length to the sword, maybe something that's not top down. What about a robust game from a meaty franchise? How about Ys 3 Wanderers from Ys? Ys 3 Wanderers from Ys was a significant departure from the top-down perspective of the last couple of games. This one chose instead to go for a side-scrolling action RPG style. This change in gameplay was a bit divisive, but it makes this game stand out among other Ys titles. Set 3 years after the events of Ys 1 and 2, the story follows Adol Christen and his trusted companion Dogi on a journey that takes them to Dogi's hometown of Redmont. The people in Dogi's hometown are dealing with issues stemming from a nearby castle and the power of some statues that are at the center of the conflict. Always ready for adventure, Adol sets out to protect the villager, uncover the mysteries of the statues, and confront the bad guy whose awakening threatens the land of Felghana. If Felghana sounds familiar, it's likely because you've heard of Oath in Felghana. This game has been remade several times already, and if I recall correctly, we have another one on the way.
My name's Adol.
Yep, there it is. You fight through quarries, fiery ruins, and snow-capped mountains, experiencing a tale of sacrifice, redemption, and courage as Adol faces off against formidable foes, including Dogi's childhood friend Chester. Ultimately, you gotta get that bad guy and save Redmont and its people. Ys 3 might be a side-scroller, but it's an RPG too, of course. Combat requires actual button press attacks. Ooh, magic, I know! We get this instead of the old bump the chump system from Ys Books 1 and 2. Familiar RPG staples such as experience points, equipment upgrades, upgrades and magical abilities, represented by ring power, are still here, bridging the gap between the game's new style and its roots. Like the Super Nintendo game Legend, the X68000 version of the game has some more features, including more music. And if you're familiar with the Ys series, you know that the music is fantastic in every game, so you'll likely want to check that one out as well. Ys 3 Wanderers from Ys is a bold experiment within the Ys series, combining action-packed gameplay with a heartfelt story. Its legacy is not only in its original release, but also through the multiple remakes and incredible soundtracks. Adol's journey through Felghana continues to resonate with fans, reminding players of the enduring spirit of adventure, and you can play it too on the Super Nintendo. As great as Ys 3 is, it lacks a little bit of that puzzle element. So if you're looking for a game that has a little more puzzle element, a little more action involved in it, consider this one, Brainlord. Brainlord is an action role-playing game developed and published by Enix. Brainlord's dungeon-centric gameplay and a heavy emphasis on puzzle-solving mechanics are what really set it apart. It's got puzzles. It's called Brainlord. The game puts players in an adventure where they control a young adventurer who embarks on a quest to find his missing father, the last of the legendary Dragon Warriors. Hell as old as time, baby. The game's core progression revolves around exploring 5 distinct dungeons. It's about earning gold and getting upgrades from local towns. The protagonist can also find and level up Jades, magical creatures that assist in tasks. This can include healing or performing long-range attacks. These Jades level up by collecting blue experience orbs dropped by defeated enemies, making them an essential part of the player's strategy. Throughout the game, players can collect various weapons such as bows, boomerangs, swords, axes, and flails, all of which enhance offensive capabilities. As the player progresses through the dungeons, they encounter increasingly challenging enemies that drop gold upon defeat, adding an element of resource management to the gameplay. Pretty standard stuff here, right? The overall gameplay structure emphasizes exploration and combat, while puzzles within each dungeon challenge the player's problem-solving skills. The plot of Brainlord centers around Ramir, not to be confused with Lamille. Wait, maybe it is. Anyway, the plot of Brainlord centers around Ramir, whose father, the last of the Dragon Warriors, sets out on a quest to confront a dragon terrorizing the village, only to never return. Dragon Quest 3, anyone? I mean, I just beat that game recently and did a video on it, so maybe that's why it's fresh on my mind. Tyler Karabov. Motivated by the need to discover his father's fate, Ramir embarks on his own journey. Brainlord actually does share narrative and character connections with other games published by Enix, such as the Seventh Saga and Mystic Arc, where the name Ramir, or its equivalent, Lamille, is used for prominent characters. This continuity highlights some thematic and narrative depth of Enix's early role-playing game catalog, making Brainlord a noteworthy entry in their lineup, and one that I would encourage you to check out. Brainlord actually looks pretty cool, right? But what if you could elevate that? How do you elevate something as cool as Brainlord? Maybe you just take the dungeon and spin it. So you probably know what I'm talking about at this point, right? What about Brandish? Released in 1991 by Nihon Falcom, Brandish marked the beginning of a franchise that blended action role-playing with dungeon crawling adventure. It launched during an era when dungeon crawlers were evolving beyond static turn-based mechanics. Nihon Falcom, known for Ys and the Dragon Slayer series, introduced a real-time top-down view with innovative controls. Players guided the protagonist Varric through over 40 floors of treacherous labyrinths filled with puzzles, traps, and monsters. The game's areas include ruins, a tower, a cave, a dark zone, and a fortress. With these came distinct challenges and some atmospheric depth. The gameplay mechanics emphasize strategy and spatial awareness. Players navigated using a grid-based movement system where turning, strafing, and attacking required careful timing. The unique rotating environment was different. While some people like it for being weird, others are just turned off by it. I tend to fall in the latter camp because I'm horrible with spatial reasoning as it is. It doesn't really affect the gameplay too much with the combat and stuff for me. What really I struggle with is keeping my place on the map. It's different. Set in the fallen kingdom of Vitoria, Brandish weaves a tale of hubris and ruin. 1,000 years before the events of the game, one king's greed led to a catastrophic battle for the essence of power, sinking the kingdom beneath the earth. The protagonist, Varric, finds himself trapped in these cursed ruins after a confrontation with his nemesis. The two, Varric and his nemesis, must navigate the labyrinth, sometimes as allies and often as adversaries. The narrative offers players choices that influence the ending, particularly regarding Varric's interactions with Dila, his antagonist. This dynamic added a layer of emotional depth that was sort of rare for the Super Nintendo era. Not unheard of, but rare. This game, again, is just a bit divisive. Some people love the length of the game, but others think it's a bit obtuse and unnecessarily long. Brandish stands as a testament to Nihon Falcom's innovation, though, during an incredible time of RPGs. Its challenging gameplay, rich narrative, and unique mechanics left quite the mark on the genre. I mean, it's kind of rare to see rotating dungeons like this, but we still remember Brandish. Okay, so maybe that's a little too radical. Maybe you want something that's a little more typical. Maybe you want something a little more simple. This next game is packed with story, but went a little simple on the graphics. And that's probably what cost it from being in the upper echelon of Super Nintendo RPGs. What about Tecmo, Secret of the Stars? Or Secret of the Stars? Secret of the Stars Stars was published by Tecmo. Huge surprise there, right? For the longest time, I actually understood it to be called Tecmo Secret of the Stars, not just Secret of the Stars. I guess that'd be like Square Enix Octopath Traveler 2. It's odd. Anyway, this game uses a turn-based battle system. Simple enough. The game features a unique mechanic in which the player switches between two parties during the quest, with some areas requiring specific party members for access. The gameplay also introduces a secondary system where players must undergo trials to gain new powers, adding depth to the battle mechanics. So it is a bit different among the others, at least, a little different. The plot follows Ray, the protagonist, and his party of warriors who embark on a mission to defeat an evil entity threatening the world. Ray begins his journey alone, but soon forms bonds with other characters. The group must first undergo trials in hidden temples around the world before they can confront the last boss. Along the way, they are aided by a group of characters who support the warriors in battle and uncover valuable treasures. As the warriors unite and gain their full powers, they become a formidable force against the sinister threat. And that's pretty heroic. Each character in Secret of the Stars has distinct traits that contribute to the party dynamic. The villains of the game range from comical enemies to less comical generals of the last boss. These enemies present challenges that require strategic thinking, culminating in a final battle against the source of all evil. The game's intricate plot and diverse cast of characters are enough to keep players invested in the outcome. Despite its intriguing story and characters, though, Secret of the Stars received mixed reviews upon release as people praised it for being an engaging storyline, but they're pretty critical of the game's graphics. They're not terrible, they're there. I like them. They're okay. It remains a nostalgic title for those who appreciate classic RPGs with a strong narrative and don't mind those simple graphics. So if that's you, discover the Secret of the Stars. Discover Tecmo's Secret of the Stars. Actually, I'll spoil it for you. The Secret of the Stars is actually the